A lovely day for most of the eastern part of the United States, save for northern New England. And it looks like our nice weather will continue for another few days. However, we continue to watch for the potential of a subtropical storm developing late this week off the southeast coast, and it might have some ramifications on the weekend in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states and even the southeast. So we will talk about all of that and more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They've got mulch, they've got sand, they've got topsoil, and this winter they've got salt. They are Long Island's largest rock salt source, and of course, we are still in the heart of hurricane season, so this might be a good time to evaluate your situation and make sure that all your hardware is in place to get you through one. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices. And I can assure you that Joe Rayo has looked and looked and looked, and he cannot find better prices. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and we have a referral link pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the I see you peeking out in the corner, Joe Rayo. It's also on the descriptor to this video. It's on the descriptor to this video. Now, if you use the coupon code, if you decide to purchase anything on the Tempest website, be it this or any of the other weather gadgets, gizmos, and smart weather fashion, the coupon code is I want a weather station. And if you use it, you get
$40 off.
That's right. That's just a special that's running for about a week. So bear that in mind. It's instead of 10% off, you wind up with 15% off, which is even better than 10%. So
I wasn't even aware that today marked, would you believe, 15 years that 15 years that Drew Carey has been hosting The Price is Right. Believe it or not.
Wow. Yeah,
Time
well,
flies.
it does. So 2008. 2008.
Yes.
So Bob Barker was 2008, 15. He was 99 when he died. He didn't go over a dollar, which was good. So he was 84 when he called it quits.
Yes.
Must
Yes.
well, he maxed out on Social Security, I'm sure.
So what we have tonight is another night of looking and wondering what we might see in the southeastern states in the next few days. It's interesting, Joe. The European, once again tonight, is pretty much advertising, at least here in the Northeast or in the New York metropolitan area, that we'll get something out of this.
Right.
But it doesn't look like the lion's share of the moisture and possible heavy precip is going to make it this far north. In fact, what's interesting to me is that it kind of holds the system down off the southeast United States through a good part of the weekend.
It actually, if you look, I mean, when you look at how the model has the convection wrapped up, it actually makes that not a subtropical storm, but a tropical storm. So I was going to get into this tonight. So Joe and I don't talk very much, if at all, during the day. We certainly didn't talk during today. The European separates that low from the frontal boundary and sits it down there, and it makes it a tropical storm. And then the frontal boundary just kind of lifts up and out with not much fanfare. The other models are saying that this is going to be either a cold core developed low, or which is what I think will wind up being, is a subtropical storm that moves northward, pushing the whole frontal boundary northward. It doesn't separate itself until the low is inland. So that's the primary difference between the two models. And you know what? Both ideas are plausible. I don't discount the Europeans' notion that this thing could separate and become a tropical storm and get left down there for a longer period of time.
Well, it'll be interesting because, as you just mentioned, Joe, models like the GFS and the Canadian model especially.
And the Icon.
and the icon moving it north and then kind of curving it to the left or to the northwest. And meanwhile, the European is kind of like a break off of tropical moisture, and that kind of fires to our south on Saturday. But the main storm, the system that may become a tropical system, stays down off the southeast states, and then on Sunday and Monday, that system finally emerges, but doesn't go north and northwest, but to the northeast. So
right. Well, all the models, when you look at all the models, since they all bring the three of them, the GFS, the Icon, and the Canadian, bring the low into North Carolina, and you get that frontal boundary just kind of breaks away, and you get this band of really heavy. I mean, somebody's going to get clobbered with rain if those three models are correct. That goes up and by. Then the remnant low goes out to the northeast, and the European is just maybe does it like a day later with the same. It kind of has the same idea, but I think it has that distinction that it makes it wants to separate the low early as a distinct tropical system, completely separated from that frontal boundary. The others, by keeping it more subtropical, keeps that frontal boundary to the north more involved for a much longer period of time. And as a result, you get this arm of very heavy rain that starts to separate away from the low and moves up through the Delmarva Peninsula, through Delaware, through New Jersey, to about New York City, southern New England, Long Island, the lower Hudson Valley. So, yeah, as I said just a few minutes ago, both ideas are plausible. So we're gonna probably be on a bit of pins and needles for a while, because the models that are bringing it up the way they are, GFS, Canadian, Icon, would suggest a substantial amount of rain will come out of it in a short period of time.
And we don't need that, do we, Joe?
No. We do not. We do not need it.
I do know that there are a few people here on this chat board that would absolutely be jumping up and down and cheering that potential on, but this is not one of those people.
Right. Well, there are a few pockets in the Northeast that did not get a lot of rain this summer, like eastern Long Island, for example. Suffolk County, central and western Suffolk County was dry, but they sort of caught up in the last couple of weeks. There's some spots in Pennsylvania that also west of I-81 where it's been a bit on, was on the dry side early on, and they haven't quite caught up yet. But the vast majority of the Northeast, particularly in upstate New York and New England, those folks will tell you they had no summer this year.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Some places, I mean, it's feast or famine, depending upon where you were. Although I think in terms of moisture, as I said yesterday, on my property, it's like a jungle out there. We've had so many bouts of heavy rain. That's one thing. The last thing I want to see now is see another heavy downpour dropping like 2 or 3 inches of rain in a very short interval of time. You're talking to somebody who had in mid-July a storm, a thunderstorm that brought almost 9 inches of rain here. So again, the last thing I want to see is any more heavy-duty rainfall, but we'll see.
Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and those of you who are lurking in the background, we know who you are. It's nice to have you here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and make sure your notifications are turned on, because we just don't haphazardly come on, a day here or a day there. We're on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35, and we're also on for Friday and Saturday if there is a storm system going on. This might be one of those Fridays and or Saturdays, depending on what this southeast system does. Well, we may be on with an extra show or two. The chairman, Scott Briller, is on the board tonight, and he hit Super Chat. Thank you, Scott. Celebrating 3 years, Mr. Briller is on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, supplying us with our Briller Jeopardy trivia that we do on most nights at the end of the show. And yes, you're quite welcome, and we appreciate all the work that you put in, Mr. Scott. And we hope that Mother Briller is getting her ice skates and feeling well enough to have at it.
And I will second the emotion.
All right. Okay, so let's get going here and see what's going on. So I thought I'd start off with tonight's surface map, which is from 5 o'clock this afternoon, showing a stretched out high from south of James Bay, another high center in northern Ohio. High pressure, also a couple of highs, one in eastern Tennessee, the other one on the South Carolina, North Carolina state line, making for a beautiful weather day in the eastern part of the United States. September, I think, has probably got more nice weather days. Uh, Maybe October rivals it. This, I think, is one of the some of the best weather of the year usually occurs in the months of September and October, in my never to be humble opinion.
And you're absolutely right. October, in fact, of all in the at least in the immediate New York City area, the month that has the greatest number of clear days is October. So it is a very lovely time to get out and enjoy. And this tomorrow, Joe, if I were on TV, I would have already labeled tomorrow as by far and away the pick of the week. Blue skies, brilliant sun, low humidity, around 75 for the high. It's going to be just a letter perfect day out there tomorrow.
And it was such a day here, Joe, in North Georgia. In fact, I spent the afternoon, after finally getting the right color I wanted for my deck, I stained my deck. In fact, I finished it not 10 minutes before we were about to go on the air. When I bring us back full screen, I'll show you the color.
Well, that sounds good.
It is.
I hope JJ wasn't in nearby, though.
No, but he was in the house, and I just had to listen to his incessant barking. He was not happy that I was outside; he was inside. But I didn't want paw prints on the deck, on the new stain.
Oh, of course.
No, Dave. I'll have the Bears doing that tonight. David Fuller hitting super chat, Joe, and he says, I heard. Oh, they listen, they hang out in these places, folks, where, they talk, they gossip about weather. David says, I heard we could see some severe weather with tornadoes possibly if the low goes to our west. What do you think if that low goes to our west? Well, why don't we just kind of work on. Well, we're going to talk about all this tonight, David, and so I'll save it for when we get to the maps. By the way, speaking of that, you'll notice on the surface map that we have a stationary boundary that runs out from the Atlantic. This is the old cold front from yesterday that runs from about 30 and 70 and then goes west and cuts Florida pretty much in half. It's on that stationary boundary that we're going to see as this high builds into the eastern part of the United States, that we're going to see this low start to form. So this is initially going to be a non-tropical system, and it's going to, the water temperatures, Joe, off the southeast coast of the U.S., especially west of 75 west, have been untouched by tropical storms or hurricanes this year. So unlike the much cooler water that's further offshore, especially east of 70 west, this water here is pretty warm, and you've got the Gulf Stream, and this low is going to be sitting over the Gulf Stream when it's off the southeast coast. It's going to, I think it's going to have a chance here to at the very least become subtropical, possibly even eventually maybe going full tropical on us.
Well, we'll see. So far we're about 4 days away from this, and the models are all trying to come together and trying to come to a consensus. And right now, still, I notice a lot of forecasts are just simply saying for the weekend chance of rain. They're not saying chance of heavy rain or chance of heavy showers and whatever. One thing I will say, regardless of what happens, I don't think it's going to be mild enough or warm enough for us to be concerned about convection. I don't think we're going to be just looking for the potential of any thunderstorms mixing in. Whatever we get is probably going to be in the form of rain or showers, but I don't think that we're going to be too concerned about the possibility of getting some rumbles of thunder, any significant rumbles of thunder with this impending system, whatever it may turn out to be.
Oh, unless it's like yesterday. But there's the yesterday had a really sharp negatively tilted upper trough that was moving through yesterday late afternoon and evening that a few places heard some rumbles of thunder. It's probably going to be an area of tropical downpours that just kind of come up depending on how this sets up. And speaking of which, you can already see the frontal boundary on the satellite loop as we're starting to get some weather developing over central and south Florida, which is sitting on the southern half of that frontal boundary. And this is Tuesday. We'll probably start to see the low begin to develop sometime later on Thursday. So we'll begin to get some clues. So the trick is the next 2 days is to watch the satellite in Florida and off the southeast coast so that we could see just exactly what's going on. Otherwise, northern New England sat in clouds for much of the day. You can see on the loop as the sunset, there was still some clouds up in northeastern New York and up in northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, especially in northern Maine, not so much in southern Maine or southern New Hampshire. We've also got some showers and a few thunderstorms that are kind of moving their way through Iowa and eastern Kansas and also back into Colorado and on up into Utah. As we check out the radar tonight, you can see where it's busy and where it isn't, up and down the eastern seaboard, except for Maine, where there are some showers and downpours going on in northern Maine. In South Florida, we've got some heavier downpours and some thunderstorms and a couple of severe thunderstorm warning boxes that popped up there. In Iowa, looking at some showers and thunderstorms, and you've got clusters of them through eastern Kansas. Well, not so much in Kansas right now, but in Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, and across parts of north central Texas and back to western Oklahoma, where we have about a half a dozen severe thunderstorm warnings that are ongoing there. And a lot of clusters of showers in Colorado, southern Wyoming, northern Utah, northeast Nevada, and even in the Sierra Nevadas, we've got some thunderstorms going on there in California. The Storm Prediction Center, we've got one working severe thunderstorm watch in north central Texas to west central Oklahoma. That's up at the moment, and you see that is in the area of marginal to slight risk, which makes total sense. And as far as tomorrow is the next couple of days, we've got a marginal risk tomorrow in a small area in eastern Oklahoma, small portion of western Arkansas, but no convection from Maine until you get down to the coastal Carolinas, coastal Georgia, Florida, and the immediate Gulf Coast from the panhandle of Florida back to southeast Louisiana. Then for Thursday into Friday, we have a marginal risk, Nebraska, southeast to Oklahoma. And SPC's got them in the long range, Joe. Let's see where they have it. I haven't looked, but I'm looking here for the first time. So day 4, eastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, southeastern South Dakota, 15%. So they're thinking a slight risk at this point. So that's on day 4. Day 4 is Friday into Saturday. Day 5 from Iowa southwestward into eastern Kansas and a small portion of northern Oklahoma. And then day 6, day 7, and day 8, they have predictability too low. But they've got 2 days here in the long range, days 4 and 5. That's in response to a big upper trough that's going to be diving into and cutting off in the plains. So that's going to have an impact on what happens along the East Coast, because that trough's going to try to lever up the coastal low and try to lift it northward up the East Coast. So that's going to be key to what happens in the East, even though we don't have any severe weather threats, obviously, in the long range.
Well, you're right, and if it goes what we say negatively tilt, kind of you think of a pendulum. When the pendulum is way over to the left, that would be a positively tilted trough. When it's over to the right, that's negatively tilted. And when we see negatively tilted troughs in the upper atmosphere, that usually indicates that the system is intensifying and could very well, as Joe just mentioned, have a very significant impact on that system in the southeastern states by taking it or hoisting it and pushing it or grabbing it and sending it northward, maybe in our direction. So we'll see.
Now, WPC on their 7-day rainfall forecast. So what you see in the east is pretty much Friday and the weekend up and down the eastern seaboard. Friday in the southeast, and then the weekend up in the coastal mid-Atlantic and maybe into coastal southern and southeastern New England. They did nudge up the 2.5-inch line between the forecast from last night for this morning and the forecast that they did today that starts at 8 o'clock tonight. So the 2-inch line now is clipping east 2.5-inch line, eastern Long Island, south, the Cape, basically, extreme southeastern Massachusetts, going into southern, coastal southern, central and south Jersey, down through Delaware into the Delmarva Peninsula, southeast Virginia, coastal North and South Carolina. So they kind of nudged that 2.5-inch area a little bit further to the west. So they probably, I don't know how much of the dayside guidance they get to look at when they do these forecasts. So I'm not privy to how they operate. But I imagine that they're probably hedging their bets because of what the European is doing as opposed to the other three models, and waiting to see which one caves. Also, by the way, big rains for eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas on the order of 5 inches or more in that orange area. The 2.5-inch line pushes up into northern Missouri. Also, some big rains up in the northern plains in the parts of North and South Dakota of 2.5 to 3 inches. And 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches extends all the way back across Montana, Idaho, and northern Wyoming, and starting to get to some heavy rain weather in northwestern Washington, and then on up through the southwestern coastal areas of British Columbia. So we'll see. You're certainly going to need another day or two to at least try to figure this out in the east.
Well, I'm getting a look at the 18Z GFS, and if you believe the 18Z GFS, it's raining here by the time all of you wake up Saturday morning. I know that my forecast on Facebook, I said rain arriving probably in the afternoon, but this thing is really rushing it now. It has, in fact, what does the yellow correspond to? 4 inches? Is that?
Hold on a second. I'm trying to load Pivotal Weather so we could have the European, which is the new European, which is coming in now. Maybe that'll give us a clue. Okay, so while that's doing that, I will bring up the GFS. Let's bring up the GFS total precip amount. So total, because it's a clean number. We don't have anything going on tonight, tomorrow, or the next day. So it's out through 108 hours, Joe. So it's loading. Yeah, so this is through 6Z Sunday. So the white is, the purplish white is 2 to 2.5 inches, and that's over Long Island, central New Jersey. You start to get into the darker purples in South Jersey, over Delaware and Maryland, and that could be 3.5, 4 inches. And then, of course, the super purple dot that's sitting on the North Carolina, South Carolina state line, inland of the coast. That's like a 6-inch number there that the GFS is putting out. But again, this is only out through Sunday morning, 2 a.m. So we probably need a few more frames of this.
Well, we'll see. I know the European, which only goes out on the intermediate, on the 18Z to 90 hours, hasn't come out yet, I guess. Right?
It's out to 30 hours. So we'll come back to that. A little later on, see how much of it we have. It's not going to go out far enough. I mean, it's only going to take us to, Saturday morning?
Right.
Yeah, it's only going to take us to Saturday morning. So, maybe we'll get a clue on the structure of the low off the southeast coast on the European, as opposed to what the other models are doing.
And I'm also interested. I've mentioned this before, and I once even mentioned it at a weather conference when somebody from WPC was a speaker. I said, "Did you ever notice the difference between the 0Z runs and the 12Z runs. Like, in other words, the 12Z runs might show one thing, then the 0Z run comes out and it shows something completely different, and then when the 12Z run comes back the next day, it flips back to what it was saying the day before. And I've often wondered whether or not there has anything to do with, convection, afternoon and evening convection being factored into the 0Z runs and whatever. This this may have a, if last night's European run did not exactly show what the 12Z run yesterday did, which was mostly a complete miss.
Right.
It actually bring a goodly amount of rain in on the 0Z run last night. Now today, once again, a goodly amount of the heavy duty stuff stays off to our south. So I'm wondering now tonight, not the 18Z that's coming out is coming out right now, but I mean, I'm wondering whether or not later tonight the 0Z run of the European once again shows this area, enveloped in lots of rainfall, and then when we tune in tomorrow and try to get the 12Z, everything gets pulled back again. It gets very frustrating.
It is frustrating. As a forecaster, I think if this is why I sometimes get worked up with folks. I get worked up privately. I don't express my opinion unless it's asked for, but I get wrapped up with folks that flip their forecasts from run to run. Okay, to me that tells me that they don't have a real clear understanding of what's happening. Okay, right. in terms of the synoptic situation, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. So if you understand what is going on, you can almost anticipate what the models are going to do. But I agree with you. It is very frustrating because, especially if they all go in one direction on one run, suddenly they go in another direction on another run, and sometimes the difference in that has a real impact on your forecast. You really do want to pull your hair out, to the point where with some people there's not a whole lot of it left. But
take a nail and hammer it into your forehead.
Right. Or as I like to say, Joe, would somebody please drive an ice pick into my skull?
Yes.
Or if I'm really feeling, chipper, I would ask them to do it into my eye. No. I mean, really. Well, didn't expect to see anything new from the Hurricane Center. And guess what? I didn't get anything new in terms of their updated forecast at 8 o'clock. It's still too early here anyway. You have to go to the 7-day to find out information on the two systems that they're looking at. And, of course, they do have that big yellow circle off the southeast coast of the United States and the east coast of Florida, 30% through 7 days. We'll probably need to get, maybe tomorrow or maybe later tomorrow, the models are a bit clearer on what's going to happen. You might see them nudge the number up a little bit on the 7-day. The second disturbance moving off the African coast, or it's just south of the Cabo Verde Islands, they've got 0 right now, but they do have a 70% probability of this developing into a tropical depression sometime late this week or this weekend, as the system generally moves westward. But that's a million miles away, and we've got we've got potential closer to the coast. And of course, Nigel, top winds with Nigel are 100 miles an hour, 974 millibars. It's moving north-northwest at 12. It's in the middle of the ocean. It's nowhere close to Bermuda. It's nowhere close to the Azores, and it's probably going to turn northeastward and make its way up toward Iceland or something like that. So let's check out the upper air in the east. Actually, what I'll do is let me bring the full U.S. up, because we really need to look at what's going to go on in the plains. And this is, of course, tonight at 2 a.m. You've got this upper trough that's moving through. I'm sorry, today's Tuesday. That was yesterday. The upper trough has already moved through and is now beginning to lift out. And you can see there's troughing from Missouri southward to Louisiana with an upper low that forms in Missouri. That trough eventually just sort of pivots by the time we get to Thursday, and you start to see that blue area that shows up off the Florida coast and off the Carolina and Georgia coast, where another upper low forms. Now, this is Thursday night. This is a cold core system at this point, And then if you look out in the west, you've got a wrapped up upper low in Oregon that is on the scene now and starting to move east. So as we go through the day on Friday, you'll notice the southeast upper low amplifies quite a bit into Friday night and early Saturday morning. Joe, 3 closed in southeastern North Carolina, actually eastern North Carolina. 3 closed. This is Saturday afternoon at 2 a.m. Now there's a short wave. I just noticed this. There's a short wave up here in eastern Canada, right there, at the same time. So you got this upper low, and this is going to represent whatever subtropical, tropical, or cold core system we have. You've got this trough that's out in the plains. Those are the players here. And as we go forward to Saturday night and Sunday, that short wave up in Canada swings across New England. And it kind of starts to squash this upper low just a bit. But there's enough of it here where it goes into Virginia and over New Jersey, what's left of it, Sunday morning. And then eventually it'll just pivot out offshore sometime later Sunday afternoon. So that's an interesting development. Meanwhile, the plains low, which was why SPC's got that severe weather there, gets pretty wrapped up in the Dakotas, but it basically stays there. But kind of interesting to see the model. This to me implies that this will be more cold core. If the GFS is right with that kind of upper air, that's still a cold core looking type of system. Or maybe it's subtropical, but it doesn't make the full tropical transition on the GFS if that upper air is correct.
If you give me sharing capabilities, I have something that will be of interest, I think, to you and our viewers.
Okay, so let's do that. I'm a sharing type of person. I don't like to hog it all, usually. It's all yours.
One thing that we have not talked about, and we're going to do right now, this is, again, the 18Z GFS, but it is also, now can you see it? Sometimes I think
I see it. Just do me a favor. Just scroll that outside bar so you bring more of the map up. You've got the northeast up, correct? There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
So this is the 700 millibar FGen, showing the area of Omega, showing where the most dynamic atmospheric energy happens to be. And Joe, you take a look at this now. This is 2 o'clock Friday afternoon. This is 8 p.m. Friday evening. Here is 2 a.m. Saturday, and take a look at this. This is 8 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Impressive.
And that is very impressive. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised. What did I say just a few minutes ago? I don't think there'll be enough atmospheric energy maybe to set off any convection or thunderstorms. I look at this, I said, my God.
You're changing your mind on the spot. That's perfectly acceptable.
This if this verifies, my goodness, that's several hours of heavy duty rain, showers, lightning and thunder and everything, and it's moving so very, very quickly. 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and look at this. By the time we get to 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, that whole mass has moved already north of the tri-state area and is now heading up toward Albany. And
it's about 6 hours worth. It's really, we've gotten. I mean, with these tropical or tropical-like systems, oftentimes it's just about 6 to 8 hours of rain, and that's it. But in those 6 to 8 hours, you get hammered.
This reminds me, and I hope this doesn't verify or whatever, but this kind of reminds me of Itzaia from a few years ago. I remember seeing very similar.
Go ahead.
Right up to our area with gusty winds and heavy rain or whatever like that. It was in, through, and it was out in a matter of 3 or 4 hours. But boy, when it was here, it did a number. Now, let me stress, this is the 18Z intermediate GFS run. This is only one run. It is not any of the other runs that we're looking at for the moment, but it certainly shows a very interesting scenario possible.
Can you switch that geography to the eastern U.S. so that we could see it as it comes out off the Florida coast? See the whole thing going up. And
let me back up a ways. Bing, 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 bing. All right, so now here we are, 12Z Thursday. This is 8 a.m. Thursday. This is 2 p.m. Thursday. This is 8 p.m. Thursday night, Eastern Time. And look, that 2 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, and here's the very beginning, the bare beginnings of this area of atmospheric energy. And you can see by the wind barbs that the center of the low, this subtropical low, is right here, right where the cursor is at 31.6 north, 77.48 west. And here is the beginnings of that area of energy, that area of omega. And wow, in just a matter of 6 hours, by 8 a.m. on Friday, now this is literally hugging the entire North Carolina coastline, and then it moves inland across eastern North Carolina by 2 o'clock Friday afternoon. And now it starts its journey northward, 8 p.m. on Friday, 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. It's here, 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and then it goes north of here when we get to 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon. And then instead of continuing north, it suddenly slithers very quickly eastward, out across central New England and out over the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, that's that Canadian shortwave that's coming down.
Right.
And turns the winds westerly. Yeah.
Right. And there it goes.
By the way, if you look at the 12Z run, it's not just one run that's done this on the GFS, it's two runs. So you look at the 12Z, it's just every bit as dynamic as the AT.
Now let's take a look at the European. Now, I'm not sure. I know the fast European only has 850. Do they do a? Oh yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to the European. This is the 12Z run of the European. And let's start at this is 2 a.m. on Saturday, and you can see that there's some omega down here. Now let's move it to 8 a.m. on Saturday. Now remember, at 8 a.m. on Saturday, according to the GFS, this whole mass of energy is right over tri-state area. But look at what the European does as of 12Z. It's first of all, it's not nearly as bunched together. The ISO lines are not nearly as bunched together. But look at this. It's well off to the south, and as we move things along, it stays well off to the south of the tri-state area, and eventually the actual low will pass on by to our south. But that too doesn't really lay much of a glove on us. So you have two different camps here, Joe. You have the GFS and the European, and the European by far is far more robust. May use that term with this system, this coastal system, as we move into the weekend, as opposed to the European, which is something less than spectacular. But again, we'll see how this all pans out. Hopefully, both will be able to get on the same page and work off each other as we progress closer to the event later on in the week.
Well, we've got a fair distance of the European out, so I'm going to bring that up. And while I'm doing that, Mr. Rayo, just want to acknowledge that Lou Arizio hits Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Louis. Most appreciated. Thank you for your generosity. So here's the European on Pivotal. Now, it's out to, this is 5 p.m. Friday, when there is already a fairly wrapped up 1004 low sitting at 30.2 and about 78.8. And in fact, I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller so I can control the the slide here, so I can move it back. So here it is. So here we go. Let me just roll this back. So let's go to 45 hours. So this is Thursday at 11 a.m. And you see the disorganized shower and thunderstorm activity that's off the Florida East Coast and well off to the southeast coast and to the northern Bahamas. And then as we go forward at 48 hours, now to 51, 54, you start to see the curvature of the isobars here. This is now at 11 p.m. Thursday night, and suddenly by the time we get to 5 a.m., there's a 1006 low that the European has. Now it looks to be on the broad side. There's not a whole lot going on south of the center. It's all north and northeast. But then as we go through the day on Friday, you see that convection starts to wrap around on the west side. I mean, this to me looks like has when you look at the way the Europeans got the radar depiction here, where it's got this hook that comes back around to the surface low. It's either cold core or subtropical. There's nothing, doesn't look too tropical here because there's nothing east of the center, there's nothing south of the center, and you don't have a well-defined area of, at least an area of thunderstorms near where the center is. I've got it out to 1 a.m. Saturday. We're only going to get this out for another 6 hours to go to 7 a.m. Saturday when it's all done. But at 1 a.m. Saturday, the low is still sitting, it's at 30 and a half and 78 point, almost 79 west. So it actually moves almost southwestward. But you see the northern area of heavy rain and thunderstorms just starts to separate and starts to lift northward. Then you've got the big high that's near Nova Scotia that's over the, built back across New England into western New York. So the gradient from southern New Jersey, especially from say southeast Virginia on southward, is on the tight side there. So this is at 6Z, and then by Saturday morning, the low is at 30.7 and 78.6, so it moves a little bit east at that point. And the northern edge of the rain is just in the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. So we really can't figure. We're seeing what the European is still on this idea that it's trying to leave that low behind and leave it, pretty far to the south. As opposed to the other ones, which at this point, if we go switch back to the GFS, for example, which I'll do here on Pivotal Weather, which I'm allowed to do, by the way, because I pay the full licensing fee. So, in case anybody's wondering, here we go. So let's get the see the GFS for 90 hours on the 18Z run is at 30, the low center is at 34.3 and about 78.4. So it's almost 180 miles further to the north. And look at the GFS where it has that, where you showed all that Omega, Joe. Look at that heavy rain that it shows Saturday morning. I mean, this would be a wall of heavy rain that comes through, and it lasts maybe about 6 hours, and you could put down. You certainly could put down several inches of rain in a situation like this.
Right.
And after that, all right, let's just roll it back. So let me just get it back here. So we'll roll it along. And you see it starts to lift the low northeastward, and it's at the southeastern Virginia. By the time we get to Saturday night, 8 o'clock, the heavy rain is now in southeastern New England and moving away. And now you've got, some showers with the left, whatever's left with those with the low. You've got some showers that come in on Sunday and produce. GFS starts to, because that upper trough that's swinging from southeastern Canada into New England is kind of enhancing, a band of showers and rain and maybe even maybe a thunderstorm or two, or perhaps just heavy rain again on Sunday, right along the coast of southeastern New England, into southern Connecticut, into Long Island, and also into southern New Jersey. And then it just slides the low straight east from there, and it goes away. And we've got a nice start to next week with a big high, a 1034 high, Joe. 1034 high in eastern Hudson Bay, building down the eastern seaboard for early next week. That's going to be dry, and it's going to be cool, if that's correct.
Absolutely. I like Late Extreme on the chatboard. He calls it a derecho.
Yeah.
The Saturday.
Yeah, well, that kind of works. That kind of works. So I don't know that I think we pretty well covered it all here, Joe. I mean, there's not really much we can add at this point, with nothing really going on in the short range. We'll have to pivot. We punt to the next run, but at least we have an idea of how this is going to play out. And again, so far the European is all by itself with trying to leave the low down there. I don't know. It just did not really do that well with Lee, in my opinion. The
Right.
GFS was so much better, so it's hard to argue against what the GFS is doing, uh, and has the support of the other models, which is also kind of interesting. By the way, can you unshare and share again, please? As I'm just suddenly lost you. And I can't do the show without you, Joe.
I think I did on share.
All right, well, share and unshare, because I'm getting a black screen instead of our lovely faces.
All right, so I'm going to share. I'm sharing,
Okay, I see
and
you.
now I'm going to unshare.
All right, there we go. We're back. Okay, so shall we do a little Briller Jeopardy tonight, shall we?
Surely, then, according to the chairman, this is the third year of Briller Jeopardy.
It is. Yes, it is. And we're going to have fun tonight. Okay? This is a fun one.
Wait a
Um,
minute, because you have Briller Jeopardy, because I have one that I didn't use from last
I
night.
know, but I like this one so much that let me go tonight, and then you could do yours
All right.
tomorrow night, okay?
Okay.
All right. Um, okay. So, Alaska Railroad, I got to tell you, he says, I'm so sorry I don't visit much anymore. I've become so busy taking care of life even more since retiring. I have to tell you, that's what happens. It's you retire and suddenly you have all these things you have to do. 'Cause I'm a great example of that. By the way, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look at the palms of my hands, Joe, you can see that's not chocolate milk stains, okay? That is the color of my deck.
Well, I'm looking. Yeah, I'm running a little behind, so I haven't had a chance to
Oh,
see.
okay. Well, it'll come up in a moment. It's on my hands, on my fingers. Where is it? There we go. I'll give you one more shot there. Should be coming up shortly. Yeah, we're lagging just a little bit, but when you see it, you'll see the
Oh,
color.
here they are. Ah, yes,
Isn't it lovely?
yes.
Okay, so here we go. The chat board, this is for you, okay? Um, so, what are the 10 longest running shows on Broadway? The 10 longest running shows on Broadway.
Can I throw out one guess?
By all means, please do.
42nd Street.
42nd Street is not on the list. All
Wow.
right, but we do have Christina Pedia, Maggie P, and Carol DiChiara, Junior Ferrante uh, have have said Cats, and Cats is number 6. Now let me tell you my opinion about Cats. Okay, all right.
Here we go.
It was the longest 8 hours of my life, and
That's
it was the longest 8 hours of my life. At least it seemed that way, and that was just the first act. Okay, that is, I left it thinking, you know, it actually ran like, I don't know, 2 hours and 45 minutes or whatever it was. And I just walked out of there thinking that's 2 hours and 45 minutes of my life that I will never get back. I'm sorry, I was not a fan. I really did not enjoy it. I'm sorry, didn't get it. Helen Bertona, Alan Rupa, and a few others. Paul Roman also mentioning, and Leon Probitsky mentioning Phantom of the Opera, which was number one. Number one. Patrick Darcy gets number 6, which is Les Miserables. Now, that one I saw and really enjoyed. Okay. That had a real story behind it, okay, as opposed to Cats, which had no story behind it whatsoever, in my opinion. Trying to see. Miss Saigon is not on the list. Clue is not on the list. Phantom, we've already mentioned. That was number 1. Oklahoma, not on the list. Okay. Not on the list. Steve
Annie.
Lapointe gets number 9, Mamma Mia. Number 9. That is on the list.
How about Annie?
Annie is not on the list, Joe. Neither is West Side Story. Neither is Cabaret. Neither is The Fantastics. Neither is 1776. Not Grease. Not Jurassic Park. Not Aladdin. Not West Side Story.
How about Evita?
Not Fiddler on the Roof. Not Evita.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Lovely.
No.
Trying to see any of the other guesses because we got a bunch left. We got Phantom. We've got Cats. We've got Les Miserables. Not Hamilton. Hasn't been around long enough. Not Pippin. Not Music Man. Not Lion King. All right, I'll give you some hints. One of them is a city. One of the,
Rent?
let me just correct something because I think somebody said Lion King. Junior Ferrante, I'm sorry, I take it back. Junior Ferrante got Lion King, which is number 3. I was so caught up. Matthew Howe, Chris Alley, Frank Scalera, and yes, Chicago. Michael McGuire, Steve Lapointe, Chicago, number 2. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, which is Phantom, Chicago, and Lion King. Cats was 5. Les Miserables was 6. So we've got 5 left. People, they're throwing all these guesses. Not Romeo and Juliet, not Rent. No, no, no. Okay, so here's another one. I'll give you a hint.
Superman.
No.
Remember that? It was back in the mid-'60s.
Let's see. I don't know if anybody mentioned this. Not Jersey Boys. No. Old Calcutta. It's Old Calcutta, which was number 8. Who got that? I just saw it. Who said Old Calcutta? Where is it? It was just here. Just saw it. And Helen Bertona gets number 7 with the chorus line. Whoever it was that said Old Calcutta, I'm sorry, I lost you on the chat board here, and I can't find you. But that was, Alan Rupa got it. Okay, Alan Rupa. All right, so we've got Phantom, Joe, Chicago, Lion King, Wicked. Oh, we didn't get Wicked. I just gave that one away. Wicked is number 4. Okay. Cats 5, Les Miserables 6, Chorus Line 7, Old Calcutta 8, Mamma Mia 9. So number 10 is left. Number 10.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Nicky Nicky Cupcake, which is like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Joe. Nicky Nicky Cupcake got it. Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
So there you have it. Those are the 10 longest Broadway shows, running shows on Broadway. Phantom of the Opera, starting from number 1. Phantom of the Opera, Chicago, Lion King, Wicked, which I inadvertently blurted, Wicked, Cats, Les Miserables, A Chorus Line, Old Calcutta, Mamma Mia, and Beauty and the Beast. You know, Joe, the thing about Wicked is, and I've never seen Wicked. My oldest daughter she must have saw it like 3 or 4 times. She loved it so much. But Wicked, I believe, is about the Wizard of Oz. Okay,
it's the prequel to The Wizard of Oz.
Right, and it goes to what my theory about the Wizard of Oz was, in that the Wicked Witch of the West was the real victim in the Wizard of Oz. Okay, I mean, think about it. She finds her sister dead, right? And the one thing that her sister had that was rightfully hers were a pair of shoes. And that juvenile delinquent who was, Dorothy, who was running around with 3 men in what could be considered maybe a bit of a questionable relationship. Seriously. I mean, and what happens? They wind up murdering her. They liquidated her, as they said.
Oh, you liquidated her.
Yes.
Very resourceful. Very resourceful.
Yeah, I have
Come back tomorrow.
I have a bit of a twisted way of looking at things. So those of you, Joe knows me long enough that I
Yes.
do. I do have a dark side, very
Yes.
dark. No, anyhow. All right. Shall we do this again tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time?
Yes. It sounds like we're going to be just as confused tomorrow night as we are right now, but we're here and we're going to be there tomorrow night. So there you go. Thank you for the 93, 94 likes. Oh, come on now. We're
Give
going
us
to go.
six. Give us six more. Come on. Can we get six more so we could go to 100, please? And while we're waiting for those 6 likes, let me just acknowledge our sponsors, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do, Joe, what do they get?
They're going to get 40. Now, this is a limited offer, folks.
Limited offer for the next week or so.
Yes.
$40 off.
$40. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, your audio dropped out for a second.
Oh,
And Omni True Value Hardware, who's been our sponsor now for, I think, going on 4 years. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Your hardware needs, rock salt this coming winter, mulch, topsoil, and sand otherwise, and make sure your home is able to handle it in case we do get some kind of impact from this subtropical system late this week. 631-756-1125. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And thanks to Scott Briller, our chairman tonight, David Fuller, and Louis Aricio hitting the chat board.
Super
the tip
Chat.
jar.
Yes,
Super
the tip
chat.
jar. Yes. We just hit 100. And hopefully there's no Weisenheimer out there that's going to take it down to 99.
It's a 101 on mine, Joe, so we made it.
Okay. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35. Hope you enjoyed us tonight, and have a safe night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Somebody knocked it down to 99. Ah, come on. Put it at 101. Okay.